and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast, the Satchel edition. My name is John. I'll be your host for tonight. Chris is off checking out the new Xenomorphs. He's gone to see the new Alien film, so he couldn't watch the hipster football. But tonight I'm joined by Mr. Josh Dorr. How you doing, Josh?
Great, thanks. Very odd to be joining the hipsters on a midweek, but glad to be here.
Yeah, luckily you get to do the good part of the European campaign, because the group stages, or two competitions bundled together, can be quite a slog to get through. But we are here to talk about the semi-finals. We have our finalists for both competitions now. We'll start with the Champions League. First tie I want to talk about is the All Madrid affair, Real Atletico. Now in the first leg, obviously Madrid went 3-0 up in the first tie. We were talking to Joel on the main pod, and I know you guys have discussed it in the sort of WhatsApp group. This wasn't really the expected result over the first tie. You thought it'd be a bit tighter, and Atletico would try their tried and tested defensive style and just hold out and try and take it back to the Calderon and get the win there. But a certain Mr. Ronaldo popped up, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. This is his stage. I think that's what's coming out of this. To get a hat-trick in consecutive knockout games is just an absolutely phenomenal feat. And yeah, to get it against their biggest rivals in the city, maybe not so domestically, still an absolutely fantastic result for them that you just didn't see coming. You expected Atletico to not only keep the score down to maybe only shipping 1 or 2 goals in this round, but certainly with how Real Madrid's defence has been this season, to at least snatch 1 goal on the counter, because they are set up very well with the likes of Carrasco and Griezmann to break at absolute pace. But just here, Ronaldo was just a completely different beast and just showed the quality that he has for many years, and reinventing himself to be that kind of number 9, but not a number 9, kind of penalty box poacher. It just shows the quality he's got, that he can completely change his game and still push on and become even better as a player.
Yeah, it's really impressive how he's adapted himself, because he hasn't got that sort of. He's still very quick, obviously, but he hasn't got that burst of pace that you used to have when you see him flying down a wing and taking players on. But now just his presence in the penalty box and getting on the end of things and just knowing where to pounce. Obviously, still has all the athleticism, but it's a very impressive feat that he's done. And I think now he's scored more goals in the knockout stages than he has in the group stage. So, like you said, this really is his sort of time to shine. He really thrives in big games. He always shows up. I was particularly disappointed with Atletico that they weren't as solid as they had been at the back. They'd sort of experimented at the start of the season with this, trying to play a bit more football and be a bit more open, and it hadn't really worked out since they reverted back to the original style that got them so much success under Simeone. It seemed to click again, but in this game it just didn't seem to work, and a huge part of that credit has got to go to Madrid. I was particularly disappointed in Griezmann up front, who just really didn't seem on it in the particular game. That took us into the second leg, which is obviously this week. I really didn't give Atletico any hope, to be honest. I thought 3-0 up. Atletico are not the sort of team who score a lot of goals, generally speaking. They can keep teams out, but you thought just Madrid at the moment, the way they've been playing, even when they have been poor, they've still been able to score a goal. But they actually started really well. It finished 2-1 in the end to Atletico, and Madrid went through 4-2 in the tie. But do you think from the performance that Atletico put in the second leg, they'll be disappointed? Because they showed what they could do, and they just didn't turn up at all for the first leg, did they? So really disappointing. Overall decent performance from the second leg, but just not good enough on the tie overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that Ronaldo got his first goal in the first 10 minutes of the first leg doesn't really help the game plan that you had initially, that you've got to actually come out, and what Real Madrid had done and the way Zidane had set the team out, that Atletico needed to change their tactics. And in the second leg, they just went hell for leather straight off the first whistle and really went at Real Madrid and didn't let them settle. And getting 2 goals in the first 16 minutes certainly helped them. It was a case of then just pushing on and trying to get those additional 2 goals that they would need to take them through in normal time, or just a goal to take it on to added time and penalties. But it was a case of, when you're sitting at the back blackjack table and you're sitting on 20, do you stick or twist? And they had to go for it. And by doing that, they let gaps come out, and a wonderful piece of skill from Benzema, ghosting past three defenders by utilising the fact that he could run off the pitch and the ball could just travel alongside the touchline. As he went past three of them to square it to Cruz, Isco putting in the rebound from an Oblak save, just kind of killed the tie for them, because the away goals just weigh so much in the second leg that Atletico, with not scoring at the Bernabeu, just couldn't really respond to that, having to score two at least to continue with the match, and maybe more to actually win it. It was just difficult for them, especially when that Real Madrid goal went in and the tie was settled at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the Benzema skill, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's worth looking up. Just it's ridiculous the way he does it, because he hasn't had the best season for Real Madrid, to be fair. I think he might have been criticised a little bit harshly, but he hasn't got the same amount of goals that you would generally expect from him, and he doesn't seem to have the same output. But I think that might be slightly age, but he seemed to roll back the years anyway with that piece of skill, and to get past not just three players, but three players who in this Atletico side who on the night were a lot better than they were in the first leg, is very impressive. And as you say, Isco steps up for the rebound from Cruz's shot. So I think most people probably had Real to go through on the tie. I think Joel had Atletico just because he thought over two legs they could grind it out, and I know he was disappointed with the performance they put in the first one. That kind of put paid to it. So Real Madrid went through. As for the other tie, we had the young upstarts from Monaco against the old lady from Juventus. I was kind of dubious about this tie. I thought Juve would probably go through, but I was worried because the sheer pace that this Monaco team has, I thought was always going to be a threat, because it seemed likely that they might switch this back three again and Barzagli would come in, who is 36 years old. He's a wonderful centre-back, but he was clearly going to be the target of Mbappe and others, and that's what Monaco tried to do in the first leg, and again the same in the second, and it just didn't work out for them. Juventus were, as they have been all season, just amazing in defence, and probably one of the best team goals in the tournament for Gonzalo Higuain, who hadn't scored in the knockout stage for quite a few years. Juve were imperious in the first leg, weren't they? That's the sort of performance you'd want if you were a Juventus fan in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. They were just ruthlessly efficient with the way they went about their business, and the way that Barzagli dealt with Mbappe through the whole game. It just showed the experience he's got, that even though he hasn't got the pace to, deal with Mbappe in a foot race, he's mentally quicker than him and could get into the right positions to get there and intercept the ball prior. And also I think Dani Alves down that side certainly helped him when a foot race was on, because even though he's in his early 30s, he's still got that extra bit of pace that with Barzagli slowing down Mbappe, that Alves could come in and cope with that. So I think they nullified his effect in the first game incredibly well. And Higuain getting 2 goals just shows the quality is there. And I think he came out after saying, this is why Juve paid so much for me, was to get them to this final. And he's repaying them now with 2 key goals in the first leg for it. And Dani Alves was absolutely fantastic in this game as well.
Yeah, he ended up being the star man over the 2 legs. There was a few sort of raised eyebrows at first at the lineup from some Juventus fans, because they expected Cuadrado to be playing and maybe to play a back 4, but he switched to the back 3 and basically stuck with the rest of the team is the same. Marquisio coming in for a suspended Sami Khedira. They just outplayed Monaco. To be fair, Monaco had a few sort of half chances, but Gigi Buffon in goal made some, I think in the end, what were probably comfortable saves. But they did get behind the defence 1 or 2 times, more than I've seen other teams in the European competition. With it at 2-0 and obviously Juventus with the 2 away goals, you expected them to go through. The second leg, it was much the same. Juventus again quite content to sit deep when they needed to, break when they could. Again, the same lineup, just Calderon coming in for Marquisio was the only real difference. Interestingly, Monaco went to a back three for this game. They switched the system up and tried to match Juve a little bit, and it was working better. I must say, they were having better spells of possession. But again, Dani Alves showing his real ability, and the first goal. Sorry, no, that was the first goal in the first leg I'm thinking of now for the team goal. But yeah, he got himself another assist for Marko Mandzukic, and then probably one. It might be. I'm trying to think how many goals he's got this season. I think he's got 4 or 5 goals, so that's definitely his best goal this season. An absolute rocket from the edge of the box. Sealed it all up. Game finishing 2-1 in the end. The Juventus defence was breached. Was this just a case of one team with so much experience in it and a very young Monaco side that, had they been together another year or two, maybe could have got through this game, and we're just lacking a little bit the sort of leadership on the pitch and the know-how?
I think the way that Juve have been playing this season, there was, as soon as they went 1-0 up in the first leg with that away goal, I thought immediately, right, that's it, tie over, because that's how well Juve have been playing this season under Allegri. They will just shut up shop. That's it. BBC will be there in front of Buffon, and there's no better defensive unit, I think, in world football than that Juventus team, especially this season. And they've shown it across a number of years, even in international football with Italy, that whole group of players just knows how to defend a game and see it out. It was slightly surprising, but the way that Monaco were pushing to see them eventually breached with Mbappe getting the goal. I believe that was the first goal from open play that Juventus had conceded. I think it was in the whole competition.
Yeah, that
but
was.
It might, yeah. I think that was the first one in the knockout stages. So that tells you how ruthless this team is. That you just got to do something special. And Mbappe ghosted in from a ball cut across at the near post from, I believe it was Falcao, and just nipped in there, and there wasn't really anything to do, but the fact that at the time Juve were 4-0 up, I think, although they'll be annoyed not to get the clean sheet, because I think they've got the kind of players there that celebrate clean sheets the same way that the strikers celebrate their goals.
Yeah.
That overall, they'll just look back and think, well, yeah, we are in the final, and that's probably the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a brilliant moment from the second leg where Chiellini clears a ball. It might be a cross from Mendy, who, it must be said, really did have a big effect on Monaco in the second leg. They really did miss him in the first leg. His delivery from the left-hand side is superb. But yeah, he cleared the ball, and I was convinced, that's got to be an own goal. But just the way he opened his body up and opened out his foot enough to clear it, put it wide of the post, he did celebrate that like he just scored the winner in a cup final. Which it's just wonderful to see, because you don't often see that from defenders, but I think that's the way it's valued for centre-backs in Italy compared to other countries, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a case that even Chiellini couldn't score past his own defence. They were that good on the night.
Yeah, absolutely. So a word quickly for Monaco. Obviously, Juventus will go through to the final, and we'll talk about Madrid and Juve in a second. But Monaco themselves... I think they'll be pleased with what they've done in the competition. It is very impressive when you consider, a lot of these players people hadn't really heard of or knew too much about unless you were covering France quite extensively. How many of them do you think will be there next season, I guess, is the real question, because it's going to be a shame to see this team broken up, because it's the kind of squad that you would have liked to give another year or two just to see what they can really do on the European stage, because it certainly looks like they've got Lyon wrapped up now for this season.
Yeah, I think it will certainly be disappointing to see this team potentially broken up. I think anybody who came into these two legs only experiencing Monaco for the first time, this isn't the Monaco of norm. I think Bakayoko had a very poor first game. People saying, that they don't see what the hype is with many of these players. Across the season, they've shown it, and Juventus were just that good that they've made Monaco look ordinary because they're certainly not ordinary with their performances in other games this season. I've got a feeling that whoever's the first player to leave this Monaco side will go for absolutely ridiculous sum of money. It'll probably be someone like Bernardo Silva or Mbappe that will go first. Then we'll slowly see them draw out, a bit like the way we saw Leicester trying to be broken up last season. Kante went for 30 million. They managed to keep hold of Vardy and Mahrez, but that's not necessarily a good thing with this way that Leicester have performed this season outside of Europe domestically.
Yeah, it's going to be a shame. I can definitely see at least two going. Just see how many they can keep hold of. I hope for their sakes they do anyway. We'll quickly touch on Atletico as well. Disappointment again. They haven't had the league campaign that they would have liked. Moving stadium now. Lots of talks around in Simeone. One more year, do you think? That's kind of the rumour going around that are given one more season. My worry for them is, again, how many of their players are going to be there, because there's lots of hype around Griezmann and possibly a move to Manchester United, and other clubs are interested. Although they do have a certain Frenchman who performed for Lyon tonight, apparently coming in, Lacazette, so that wouldn't be too bad of a replacement.
No, absolutely. I think the other thing that I think was missed just by this week's main pod was the fact that Pioli's now gone from Inter.
Yeah.
And we know how close the ties are with Inter and Simeone. And the fact they've just got new Chinese investment could be the case that they go big to try and get him across. I think he would, in an ideal world, like to see this transition for the first year to the new stadium. However, it's not every day that the club that you want to manage is going to come knocking on your door. It could become a missed opportunity. And I think it's going to be a difficult summer for Atletico up and down in the playing squad and in the dugout for who stays and who goes. But I think with recruitment, they've always done well with getting in players and turning them over. Mandzukic comes to mind as one of them, who's now at Juve. He was, putting up trees there before going to. He went to Bayern and then to Juve. I forgot the order correct.
Yeah, that's it.
So they do have that kind of, good recruitment policy. So I think in terms of on the field, they'll be okay. It's what they'll deal with off the field with managerial situation that will be the biggest blow to them.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Joel will obviously keep us across all of that. As for the final itself, that is on the 3rd of June in Cardiff. So our mate Jace is very happy. He's been sending me pictures of all the hospitality being put up. Keeps going down there every day, looking like a weirdo, but there we go. Who do you fancy for the final then? Juventus, Real Madrid? I'm really struggling to call it.
Yeah, it's the unstoppable force meets the immovable object kind of final. I thought Juve would win it when the competition started. They just looked like the team that would do it if they got into a kind of habit of grinding out wins, which they have done. I think the quality they've got up front mixed with the quality they've got at the back will see them through. However, saying that, you can't look at a team that contains the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and say they haven't got a chance.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very tight. I expect it to be tight as well. But I would expect, I think, Juve to win it for me.
Yeah, I'd like Juventus to win, not just because I'm a Serie A fan, but because it's the trophy that Gigi Buffon hasn't won amazingly, which seems ridiculous considering how long he's been playing football. I'm leaning towards Juventus for the win, very tentatively. I've hated backing them at any point because whenever I back a team, they normally lose. So, and I know one of our listeners, Mike Folletti, is a big Juventus fan, and he's making sure that I don't curse his team. But for anyone who is a Real Madrid fan out there, don't worry, we're not discounting you at all, because when you look at the really interesting thing for me will be the midfield battle, because we know how good the defence is and how many problems Ronaldo will cause, and Isco and Asensio, all those great forwards that Madrid have got, and also the same can be said for Juventus. Dybala and Higuain have been fantastic up front, and Mandzukic as well. But Cruz and Modric versus Pjanic and Sami Khedira is going to be really, really interesting. Obviously, Sami Khedira, ex-Madrid player as well. Higuain coming up against Sergio Ramos, who apparently are still very good friends. So there's some good little sort of tales, individual battles on the pitch as well as between the two teams. So I'm really looking forward to it. Big glamour tie. It's what you want in the Champions League. Hopefully it's not a drab final, because I know a couple of them have been, but it should be brilliant. We'll move on now to the Europa League, the so-called ugly sister, although I don't think it is actually. I think it's a very good competition. You just have to suffer through all the qualifying. We had two exciting semi-finals, lots of goals in one, not so many in the other. We'll start with Ajax and Lyon. Wow, this was mad. The first tie, I thought this is it, game over, it's done already, because Ajax absolutely stomped Lyon. It was 4-1 on the night on the first leg. Traore with a couple of goals, Dolberg, Yunus, Valbuena got one back for Lyon, the important away goal. And I didn't really see Lyon coming back into it. I thought they were very poor in the first leg. Defensively, were all over the shop. Ajax really exploited that well. Despite being such a big name, obviously, historically, they're not really the fancy team in the competition. They've got a lot of young players. This is the tradition there. And they really played them off the park, I thought, in the first leg. Now, I didn't see the second leg tonight because I was watching Manchester United. Lyon won 3-1 on the night. We had goals. We had a sending off. So, Josh, do you want to talk us through tonight's game?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just as exciting as the first leg. You didn't think they'd be able to beat the 37 shots that they had in the first tie, but they did here with 40 between the two teams, and it looked like it was all wrapped up when Kasper Dolberg, kind of on the week that an Ajax legend celebrated his birthday, kind of channeled his inner Iceman to coolly finish and look to put the tie out of reach for Lyon, but a penalty for Lyon at 45th minute, which Lacazette coolly finished. I think there'll be questions over the awarding of the penalty. It looked soft, but it's one of those. Don't put your body in the way and make it look like a foul if you're not trying to. So I think the defender and the inexperience of some of the Ajax backline was at fault there for that. And then for them to kick off as well, lose it, and Lacazette to then score at the back post in the first minute of injury time in the first half to make it 2-1 at half time certainly would have changed that team talk for Ajax. Getting into the second half, it was very up and down. I think the whole two legs, it was more like a basketball match than any kind of football game we've really seen. Really open, both goalkeepers tested, but just finishing wasn't there. With Ghazal getting a goal in the 81st minute, that certainly sent shivers down Ajax's back line. There was a lot of yellow cards given out in this game. A lot. I think Lyon ended up with 5 players booked in the end, and Ajax ended up with 3 players booked. And then in the 84th minute, I have to give up on his name, Vergiva.
I think that's it, yeah. Drew will shout us if we get it wrong.
He will, certainly, I don't doubt that. I'll go with Vergiva. Got his second yellow in the 84th minute. It was a silly, silly challenge. I know he's not the youngest in that team, but he showed the overall inexperience of that Ajax team by just lunging in completely unnecessarily outside the box, and gave Lyon a very, very good chance for them to really make this tie even more interesting and pull it into added time. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. Cornet had a number of good chances for them in the end, but overall, Ajax just I think we're lucky to get through because they weren't interested in defending, even with in the last 5 minutes and down to 10 men. The three forwards were not that interested in helping their fellow players out when tracking runners. Now, whether or not that was a tactic, I don't know. It could be that case that, they know Lyon need to push on and move defenders up from the back, but if you keep three players sitting up there, they can't obviously commit overly and overload the midfield. So I think they got away with it, certainly.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that in the final.
Yeah, it's, this Ajax team is quite interesting. I mean, their home record in the competition is very good. Their away record not so great. In the previous round, they were 2-0 up and then went to Schalke, who have had a pretty awful season, to be honest, for a club of that size, and nearly threw it away and only came back through in injury time and went through 4-3. They lost the game that night 3-2, and it was kind of a mad game there. Now, talk to me about Kasper Dolberg. We do have a question about him. I'll just see who it is who's sent that in to us. Were you impressed with him on the night? Because I know Drew raves on about him all the time and says how good a player he is. It's from at Bellerin's Boots, Hectic Bellerin. Want us to talk about Kasper Dolberg. I've seen bits of him. Obviously saw highlights from the first game, the goal, very well taken. I've seen some of his movement. He looks very impressive. Do you think he's someone who's going to be on the radar of the other European clubs and be snatched out of Ajax come the summertime?
He's certainly got all of the attributes that you're looking for in that kind of modern forward. The commentator I had on BT Sport when I was watching the game described him as a Harry Kane kind of player. I would disagree with that because I think his build-up play is a lot better than Kane's. Kane's not very good at getting assists, whereas Dolberg's a bit more of a team player. I would liken him to more of a Zlatan, but without the temperament. He's still got that kind of clinical finishing, the incredible movement, but doesn't have that kind of, the saying that, a best friend is one that will help you bury a body, was Zlatan will help you kill the guy. He doesn't really have that kind of, Punisher mentality.
Yeah.
He's probably a little bit cooler in the head, but overall he looks absolutely incredible. The only worry I would have is if he moves out of the Eredivisie too quickly. And there's not a great record of strikers in recent times, especially if he comes to the Premier League, with doing well after they come out. Thinking the likes of Boney in his second season being one. There are a couple others as well that haven't really ventured too well when they've come out of Eredivisie. Hopefully he gets that move right and can push on, because I think he could be a very, very good player for someone if he gets first team football as well.
Yeah.
So I think the likes and the teams that will be coming in for him could be ones where they'll try and put him on the bench and won't start him. And I think at the age that he is, he needs to be starting games. That being said, I'd love him at Arsenal as a Giroud replacement.
I'm sure Drew would agree with that sentiment. I know he always talks about him. There's quite a few stars, sort of young stars in this Ajax team, and there always are. And I think it is a case of a lot of them, ones in the past where they've been hyped up and maybe haven't quite hit the heights. I don't think it's necessarily always the player's fault. I think it might be they've chosen the wrong club, which can happen when you're that age, and it's sort of stunted their development, and they've taken a few more years to come on. But yeah, Dolberg is one to look at. Davy Klaassen as well, Ziyech, and the other one would be Justin Kluivert as well, Patrick Kluivert's son, who's there. He's doing some good things as well. So mad game. I think Lyon will be very disappointed, especially with their first leg performance, because they were really so poor at the back, and it kind of sums up their season when you see the response they have in the second leg, and where they've done it in games this season. They've won big games sometimes, and other ones they've just not turned up at all, and it's just that inconsistency they're missing. But very impressive from Ajax, and it's nice to have an old name, a big one as well, in a final. And they will be facing a Manchester United side who, they made it very, very difficult for themselves. They faced Celta Vigo in the other semi-final. I didn't know a whole lot about Celta. I knew some of the players like Iago Aspas and John Guidetti and a few other names that people will know, but I just spoke to Joel about them and what to expect. First leg, to be fair, was a very one-sided affair. It was finished 1-0 to Manchester United. Marcus Rashford on the score sheet. They had so many chances in the game that they didn't take. Celta really weren't in it, didn't put in a good performance, which was surprising because in the league they'd been resting a lot of players. They'd basically given up getting as best a league position as possible because their La Liga season was safe. They didn't have to worry about relegation or anything else, so they put all their eggs in the basket for this competition. And they just did not turn up at all for the first leg. And if it wasn't for Sergio Alvarez in goal for them, it certainly would have been a higher scoreline for Manchester United. We came into the game tonight. I expected United to go through. It was a weird game. They got the early goal, United, and you thought it was all done. Really, really good cross from Marcus Rashford. Great awareness, picked the ball up on the left wing, and Fellaini made a really good run in at the back stick. Goalkeeper probably could have done a little bit better, to be honest, with the header from Fellaini, but the quality of the ball in was superb, and it's well worth looking up just for the cross. And that basically was the first half. Nothing really happened. We got into the second half, and Celta came out. They were much better second half. They were pushing more. They were probably more. Sisto down the left-hand side was starting to cause more problems. Over both ties, their big issue was the final ball, which they were starting to find a little bit more of in the second half. And United just seemed to sink back a little bit deeper and deeper as the game went on. So they were better second half. They left it in the end a little bit too late. Hozabed came on at half-time, who really did make a improvement to the team. He came on for Vass, who had probably the best chance of the first half of header that he put wide. Bongonda came on as well, which has now turned into my favourite footballer's name to say. That's great. But yeah, they really pushed, and then as United just dropped deeper and deeper throughout the game, they just kept giving more possession over to Celta, and Guidetti had a couple of good chances that he missed and was obviously jeered by the Manchester United fans because of the City connection. Obviously he was there. And then they got a goal with 5 minutes to go. Roncaglia scored. Just very good header, and it all just went completely insane. The game completely turned on its head. There was, United obviously were at that point, oh no, if Celta score, they're through, and we're not going to have enough time to get a goal back. So Carrick was on, Rooney, Smalling, all these players are coming on, and then there was a big melee over seemingly nothing at all. And Eric Bailly, who had a superb game, it really, really impressed me in this. He's been really good for United this season when he's been available. Had some sort of argument with Roncaglia. It wasn't so much a punch, but he put his hands to his face, which obviously we know you can't do. Then both teams came in. There was lots of pushing back and forth. John Guidetti was on the floor. Daley Blind is laughing at Guidetti and saying, he hasn't been touched. In the end, Bailly was sent off, and so was Roncaglia. I thought Roncaglia's sending off was a little bit harsh. He was very angry, to be fair, as he was going down the sideline and looked like he was trying to start a fight with Bailly again. Antonio Valencia could have been sent off as well because it looked like he raised his hands, but I think in the end the ref probably tried to just keep it even and get the game finished. United at that point, Rooney's on, Carrick's on, they did the sensible thing, getting it into corners, wasting time, winning free kicks, all those kind of things, using their experience, very sensible. And then in the last minute of the game, because the melee had lasted so long, there was 6 minutes extra time, the ball fell to John Guidetti in the 6-yard box and he put it wide. And it was it was the last kick of the entire match, and he could have won it for Celta, last second of the game, and the entire Old Trafford went silent just as the ball dropped to him. It was amazing. It was really, really weird scenes, and it's the only time I've ever seen Jose Mourinho look genuinely worried. He did actually look petrified in the game, which is a very strange expression to see on the face of a man who is obviously so confident in everything and every decision he makes. So, I think on the balance of the two games, Manchester United definitely deserved to go through. They were miles the better team in the first leg, and Celta will be kicking themselves that they didn't turn up for it because they could have caused them some problems from the way they performed in the second. So they go through to the final to face Ajax. Josh, I know you've got a question to ask on Sisto.
Yeah, I saw him a couple of times in the earlier rounds and looked incredibly good. incredibly progressive and aggressive in the way that he attacked the opposing fullbacks. I just wanted to know how he got on in this game, because obviously I was watching the Lyon Ajax game at the same time. Because across the two legs, I think potentially he may be off to pastures new.
Yeah, he was very good, I thought, in this game. It's particularly in the second half. The one issue I had with him was his final ball. At times, it wasn't quite. He didn't make the right decision. I'm just going to check how old he is actually, just while we're talking about him. But yeah, no, he's very direct. He likes running at the fullback. He did favour coming inside a little bit too much for my liking. He's only 22, so he's got a lot still to learn at that age. So I do think potentially there's a player in there that could maybe take a step up from Celta. I'm not sure he's quite Champions League ready. He's almost thereabouts. He did put in one excellent ball for Vas in the first half, and he really whipped it in. It was one of the few times he went to the byline and whipped it in with his left foot. But he was very exciting to watch, and it's funny because Iago Aspas up until this tie had kind of been Celta's star player, especially in this, particularly in this competition. A player who hadn't done, so well at Liverpool. We'd gone to Celta and has really thrived there. But over the two legs, he was quite disappointing because he was the one you expected something to come from him. But more was made from Sisto and in particular Jozabed as well when he came on at half time. But yeah, he looked a decent player, and I could see a few clubs definitely interested. But maybe in a few years' time, if his development continues, he could certainly be at the Champions League level. Now, as for the final, I really don't know how to call this because Manchester United have been so Jekyll and Hyde all season. They went on a very impressive unbeaten run, but a lot of those runs were draws. That was in the Premier League. They're not an expressive team like they used to be. I think obviously they're still in transition. That's clear to see. And I'm sure there'll be more goings in and out of the club come the summertime. And the other big thing as well is that Eric Bailly was sent off in the game, and he'll obviously, and it was a straight red card, so he will miss the final. Who for me has been their best defender, and certainly in this game was absolutely excellent at the back. So Manchester United, where is the Europa League final? That is a good question. Do we know?
Stockholm.
It's at Stockholm. Yeah. Okay. So no favourable ground for either team in that one. Who do you fancy in the tie? Because me and Chris have basically been saying the whole way through that this competition is Manchester United's to lose, if you like, without being too arrogant about or insulting to the other teams. And we thought the only other team that maybe could challenge them realistically was Lyon if they turned up, which obviously they didn't do over the two legs. So would you give it to United just on the experience and the manager they've got, or do you favour youth and Ajax and a little bit of an upset?
I think Ajax will go into the game with absolutely no fear. That's the benefit of having a team built of youngsters, that nothing really phases them when it comes to the big stage. But I think the experience of this Man United team, as you said, that the Eric Bailly red card is going to be a big miss for them. The fact that they've got to try and put in either Jones or Smalling into the back, or take a risk and put Carrick there. I think they've still got enough to see it through in a one-off game. I think Jose knows how to win a final by hook or by crook, and I think that'll be the way he goes for it. So I wouldn't be surprised for him to stink out Stockholm with a horrible 1-0 victory to take this. But as they say, you don't really remember the performance of a team in a final. You just remember who won it.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for a fan of exciting attacking football, but trophy is a trophy at the end of the day, and this is obviously very huge for United because this would mean guaranteed Champions League football for next year, and they've kind of painted themselves into a corner on this is what they're going to go for, because Jose seems to have given the chance of top 4 in the league, given that all up now. As for Ajax, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because you're from the school of Ajax, so you play your system that one way. It's very expressive. Everyone knows each other's positions. They can drop back in, and they're fluid, and they move forward, and they've got all these exciting youngsters. I said Ajax earlier in the competition for a bit of a laugh, just because the way they came back against Schalke. It was more of a joke, and I think I was having more of a pop at Schalke than anything else for giving up the 3-goal lead that they had that would have seen them through. So I'll stick with my crazy punt, and I'll stay with Ajax. My head says Manchester United, but I don't know. There seemed to be something missing in their midfield. It seemed evident again tonight. They've got Ander Herrera, as a very good midfield player. They've got Paul Pogba, who I still don't think he's been used properly, but he's a good player. He did see a couple of flashes of his skill and his ability tonight, not enough of it. Marouane Fellaini played, who was okay on the night, obviously got the goal, but they just don't seem to quite have the balance right in the transition. They relied a lot on Marcus Rashford tonight and his pace, and Jesse Lingard, who were both superb. They were very, very good, and Rashford was unlucky not to get another goal tonight. Again, Alvarez making a good save. So I'm going to go for Ajax, just because I think, like you said, the lack of fear that they'll have going into the game. The expectation is all on Manchester United to do something and to win this. So we'll give it to Drew's boys. Well, not Drew's boys because he's a Feyenoord fan, but I know he'd prefer an Ajax win over a Manchester United one, just because of the players at the team. But yeah,
I think the big thing that we'll see before this is the fixtures coming up beforehand. Man United, the last game of the season, is on the Sunday beforehand, where they play Crystal Palace at home. And if that game's got anything riding on it in terms of top four, you would maybe see Jose having to play some players that he'd want to play in the Wednesday fixture and not be able to rest certain players, because they've got some tough fixtures coming up. They've got Spurs away and Southampton away in the next week or so. So that's where I'd have a look to see how this final would go, and that would be a benefit for Ajax, because I think the league is all but gone for them now.
The final is on the 24th, so it's just under 2 weeks away, and Ajax's last game is on the 14th, and they're away to Willem II. They can still win the league, but they have to win their game, and Feyenoord have to lose. Feyenoord are at home to Heracles. Me and Chris discussed this on the pod during the week, and we basically said it's up to Feyenoord to throw it away, essentially. So, regardless of what happens in the Eredivisie, Ajax have 10 days between their game and the final, which obviously is going to be a benefit for them. So we shall see what happens then on the 24th. But I'm looking forward to both games. They should both be really, really good. I'm hoping the fact that United have been defensive this season, but because Ajax are a possession team and they like to move the ball about, that actually could be a good matchup, because they move it very fluidly and exciting. And United, for as dull as they have been at times, breaking forward with the pace they've got from Lingard and Rashford and Mkhitaryan as well, who had a good game tonight. They're very good on the counter, so that should be a good match. But we'll wrap things up here now. With the Satchel this week with a couple of questions just quickly, and then let you listeners go. We've got one in here. Let's just get these from Marble Halls TV. If Juve win the Champions League, would it mean a resurgence in Serie A? This coupled with if Inter and AC Milan, as two great clubs, get good again. I think it's important for. Obviously, if Juve win it, it's huge for Serie A, but the fact they've got to the final again and the way they've performed in Europe this season is good enough for Serie A in that terms. It's now down to the other teams to join them and start putting in better performances, because Napoli and Roma have been particularly disappointing, and even the teams that have been in the Europa League, like Lazio, I don't think you can pick too much on Sassuolo because their squad wasn't really fit for it, but Inter as well, another side that haven't been good enough in European competitions, whether in Europa or Champions League in recent years. They really need to step their game up. But if Inter and AC Milan do go and spend the money that's being talked about in the summer, and if they get European football, which is the big if at the moment, because it looks like both of them could miss out, then we'll see what happens. But I hope it does, because I prefer Europe when there is a bit more balanced. Champions League feels a bit more exciting. I don't know about you, Josh, because generally the last few years it will be Barca, Madrid or Bayern. Juve sort of resurgence has added another team in there. PSG in the last few years, you think they're almost there, and Monaco this season has obviously been the other bright spot.
Yeah, I think with the way that Champions League has kind of built its semi-finals, they have been kind of mundane. It is that case of, well, you've going to basically invite Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Bayern to the semi-finals. The rest of the competition doesn't really matter, and then pick a wild card
Yeah.
because that's what it's really been. It's been either your Atletico, your PSG, or your Juve in recent years that have come through. I mean, it's been the first time that two big heavyweights have dropped out of the competition in the likes of Bayern and Barca. So I think it was the first time in maybe 10 years that neither of them featured
Yeah, I think
in a
it's something like that.
semi-final. It was an outrageous stat with the case of how repetitive the Champions League has got. That's where the kind of Europa League comes into its own
Yeah.
because of the fact that it is all changing, because it is built up of mostly teams that mid-table clubs that have either pushed on and done well, or teams that have had disappointing Champions League runs. So you're ending up with these big teams, or ex-European heavyweights, like we've got here. Like a United Ajax is a quintessential 90s European final for the Champions League.
That is worthy of a Champions League final, or certainly would be years past, definitely.
So I think that's the kind of benefit that you're getting from it.
Yeah. We'll move on here. We've got one from Bobby Chakraborty. Will this Ajax team get picked apart in the summer, or can they keep this team together? It's really difficult for Dutch teams to keep hold of their players because they just do not have the money to pay. They are essentially a development squad for the bigger boys in Europe. There's the problem Ajax have. It's not like in the early 90s where they kept an exciting side together and went on and won the European Cup. I'm not sure how many of this lot will go. Kasper Dolberg, who me and Josh have already spoken about, would be one I could see moving, and maybe Davy Klaassen. Joel Veltman is another guy who's been linked with a few European clubs. Other than those would be the three I would guess. But
I think
I would guess that Veltman's probably the most likely. But as for the other two, I don't know.
Klaassen has been heavily linked with Everton.
Yeah.
And the contract negotiations with Ross Barkley, I'm sure, will have a big say on whether or not he makes his way over to Everton. But I think he's the most likely to leave.
Yeah.
In the summer. I think Dolberg they can hold on to. I think Ziyech is probably the next one to come out.
Yeah.
I think Drew's been singing his praises, and I think there's a number of clubs that are in for him overall. But I think I think we've highlighted the key players, certainly, that could be on the way out, but I would be surprised if Dolberg did leave, unless he actually wanted to, because I don't think Ajax will need the money if Premier League money comes in and takes Klaassen.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the one advantage with selling to the Premier League. A player who you might sell to the Bundesliga for 10 million euros, you can sell to a Premier League club for twice the money, just because they have so much more money to spend. I hope they can keep some of the players together. The one thing Ajax have got is a wonderful youth system, and they just keep producing talent. So I'm sure there'll be more coming through. One from Jimmy R at NNGuna. What have I done to so displease the footballing gods? Jimmy is an Arsenal, Inter Milan, Atletico and Bayer Leverkusen fan, for anyone who doesn't know. Jimmy, you've just got bad luck, mate. It's almost the same as me, don't worry. Worse things can happen. Possibly, I'm not sure. We'll move on quickly from that one. We've got one last question. It's from Francisco Zenteno. Do you think Ajax will change its style of play for the final or be more defensive? Personally, I don't think so. No, I think that Ajax they have their system, they play their style, and that's it. They may adapt in game. Depending on what Manchester United will do, but I expect they will start for the traditional sort of 4-3-3, the way they set up. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, with the way that they defended across the two legs, I don't expect them to defend in the traditional sense. Let's put it that way. I think attack is definitely the best form of defence for any Dutch club, really. It is a case of controlling the possession, because if they haven't got the ball, they can't score a goal. And I think that will still be the case here, because even when, Lyon were 3-1 up and pushing for a fourth in the second leg, they were, as I said, still keeping 3 men up, and the likes of Kluivert were not interested in tracking their men at all. Dolberg was putting in a couple of, I think, token closing down runs on centre-backs, but overall, I don't think they'll be changing their style for anybody.
Yeah. No, I am really looking forward to it. I do kind of hope it pans out that way, that United do sit deep and try and hit them on the counter, because Rashford running at that Ajax defence should be very exciting, and United without Bailly could be lots of goals in that game. Well, that's it for tonight's Satchel. Thank you for everyone for all your questions, and thank you for listening all season long through all the Satchel pods that me and Chris done. I'm sorry we haven't done as many as we did last season. We couldn't do both legs each week, just work and stuff commitments unfortunately getting in the way. There will be another one after the finals, I think. I'm not sure if we're doing one for both finals or we're doing separate things or something like that, but they will be podcasted about at some point, and we will let you know through the Twitter. Josh, thank you for joining me tonight.
That's okay. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, good stuff. And for everyone else, I hope you enjoy both your finals. If you're a fan of any of the clubs, in the finals, and you're lucky enough to see them, I wish you all the best for it. But yes, I will be cheering on Juventus and Europa League. Yeah, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'll probably cheer on Ajax. Come on, let's be honest. But we have been the Football Hipsters. This has been the Satchel. We will be back with you on Sunday night, recording for the English breakfast, and then Monday with the regular pod, which Joel should be back for, and Chris as well. But as Chris always says, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. I think it's that. We've been doing it so long, I've still forgotten it. But we'll speak to you very soon.